And we are live. Hi, everyone. As you may know, I'm Jennifer Longmore, founder of the #1 Akashic Record Training School in the world. And I am here with a very special human, intuitive channel, best-selling author, founder of the High 7D Energy Healing, Christina Rice. So and she's also the author of Manifestation Mastery, How to Shift Your Reality and Co-Create with the Universe. Plus, at this point, Christina, I think probably a gazillion other books, but she has been the host of her own podcast for 7 years. So today we're going to be talking about how to build a profitable movement for the new earth, because the templates, and we all know it, we all know the templates are changing for a lot of things, including money and business, the way we used to market, the way we create content, the way we serve people, the structure of our offers and all that kind of stuff is shifting, but it really has to start with a movement. So, Christina, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited too. We've been planning this for a while, and it seemed like, I mean, you do so many things, right? So we were trying to figure out what is going to be of high service, right? To be supporting people.
Yeah.
Anyways, that being said, let's talk a little bit about your background before we dive in. Hi, ladies. So happy to be here. Just as Facebook user, can you do me a favor and just let me know who we can say hi to as you come on, so that we know who we're saying hi to? I like to acknowledge people by name. That's part of because people used to butcher my last name in school, right? So I'm like really mindful about getting people's names. Hi, Lydia. Oh, yay, Lydia's here. Lydia, for all of you watching, is an amazing, amazing PR strategist and publicist. So definitely connect with Lydia. All right. So let's start with, at what point were you hosting your podcast and building your business before you realized, oh, I'm creating a movement?
I think that came in levels because I started my business and my podcast when I was so young. I started my podcast when I was 20 and I was in college. And at first it was just because, I have that energy about me of, I want to talk about something and I want to tell the whole world. And I never intended for it to become part of my business. It was just it was aligned for me. It was my passion. And it was probably, I would say, a year in where I realized, whoa, like this could be my career, in terms of what I was talking about. And I had naturally built up a platform through the podcast, through at the time I was blogging every day. I actually started off like blogging, back in the day when I was kind of a thing. And there was, space for that. And then on Instagram. And I think I always kind of had a natural knack for building community on social media platforms, which I think is very relevant, with what we're talking about today. But it's probably like a year in where I realized, whoa, I've built a lot of people that really trust me, and I hadn't sold anything. And at that point I realized, people trust me. I can release things, and people really, responded well. And since then, my business has gone through many different iterations, and I think I'm really good at pivoting at this point because I've done it many times. And I think that just goes to show, like, you can build a profitable empire in a way that feels aligned for you, in an unconventional way. I think most of what I have done has been pretty unconventional, and you can mesh worlds together. I feel like a lot of what I do, I've meshed a lot of different worlds together and created my own kind of unique method and very unique space. So yeah, you can definitely meld a lot of different worlds together and do it your way.
Mm-hmm. I love how you monetized it. And yeah, I mean, you definitely created a movement, because when people are hear that I'm connected with you, they're like, Christina Rice? But I'm like, yeah, so why are you asking? But yeah, you've definitely got a great reputation online and in such a large, it's weirdly a huge world, and it's also a really small world, as we know, right? And so for your name to stand out in a positive way, right, is actually a big deal, especially when we look at the increase in conversation around the need to change things up in the online space, particularly in the coaching / healer, whatever we're going to call it, space. And that'll be a conversation maybe we can have for another day, because that's brewing inside of me. So, and I know it's brewing inside of you. Maybe we'll just default today and talk about that. But what's interesting to me For those of you that don't know, so Christina has her podcast, which is monetized, and it's a very highly rated podcast, and a lot of people really want to get on that, and not everyone is going to, just because there's not enough room for all the guests that apply to want to be on your podcast. And then you've just started this quartz jewelry line, crystal infused jewelry line. And then you are, what book, with the poetry book that you just released, what book number was that?
Well, that was my second release. I have 6 that I've written, so we're releasing a lot more next year. I'm pacing them out. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
Pacing it out. But yeah, that was the second official release, and then I should have 2 more early next year coming out.
Yeah. And at one point, and this happened, I talked to a mutual friend of ours, Amber Lee Lyons, who owns Shopper Girl. Hi, Amber, if you're watching. And she mentioned that you were chatting with her the other day, and that she's going back to her roots, and that you're going back to your roots as far as doing a lot more writing and stuff. But at one point, people asked you to help them start creating a business like yours, because you were really innovating and you were just kind of doing what felt good to you. I know beauty is a big part of your branding. Unless it looks beautiful, it's probably not going to be going on your Instagram account or on your website or things like that. So you pay a lot of attention to aesthetic. There's a vibe for sure that you create in your spaces, whether they be more intimate spaces or your online presence and so on. But you do a lot of different things. And so it occurs to me, like, I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur as well. I own a few companies. I do a lot of very conventional businesses, and then I have my very woo businesses, and then I have all these interests within my sort of legacy business, which is Soul Journeys. And it's not always easy, right? It's not always easy to go, okay, well, this offer is completely different than probably why people came into my universe in the first place. How am I going to package this up in a way that makes sense, that feels like it's not kind of jarring or discombobulated or things like that? So what tips would you give to people that are watching right now that are multi-passionate and have maybe a few very distinct, I'll say, divisions in their company of what they offer?
I feel that now more than ever, every brand is a personal brand. And I think that why nowadays people are so inundated with information and they're overwhelmed and they're looking for people they trust. So if somebody knows you, right, and they've been in your world, they know, I trust Jennifer. And so at that point, it's less about even what topic you're talking about. It's more about, what is Jennifer offering, because I trust her and I know that she's putting forth whatever is going to be in highest service for me. It's the same thing with me. People come into my world and they trust me and they like me as a person. They resonate with me as a person. And so it's less about even what I'm offering. It's more about just that it's coming from me. And so when I say I feel every brand's a personal brand, I totally understand that with certain businesses, it might not be like, it's not necessarily your personal life being put out there. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is people are coming for the people. You look at a lot of, direct to consumer CPG companies, and why do people want to buy that CBD oil? Why do people want to buy that supplement? Why do people want to buy that necklace or whatever it is in the product space? And it's because they like the founders. And so nowadays, if you have a product, for it to do really well, the products that are going to do the best, the founders are talking about their story and why it's important to them. And people are really resonating with the founders. Founders are getting on podcasts and doing podcast tours. Like, that's how you build a company nowadays. And so I have found that there's been a lot of things within my business that people have said, oh, that's not going to work. You can't tie that together. And it does all go together because it's all coming from me, and my vibration is threaded through everything I'm doing. And if people resonate with my frequency, then they're going to just want to stay on that track. And so I think that seeing the company as a personal brand more so, even if it's not about your personal life or anything like that, helps you meld everything together in a way that makes sense. Because people want real connection nowadays, and people just want things from people that they trust. So that would be like my overall, like, think of it as a personal brand. That would be my top recommendation.
Cool. And you do that really well. For those of you that aren't following Christina on Instagram, you're in a lot of different platforms, but I would say, other than your podcast, by the way, can you let everyone know what your podcast name is?
Yeah, it's called Christina the Channel.
Okay,
Easy.
because she's a channel. But you can find her, Christina Rice, over on Instagram, and you'll see if you look at her images and stuff, you'll see that it's very intentional, and you'll see how she has built a highly engaged brand. So, you mentioned that, and it sounds like, I mean, that's really part of the shifts that's going to happen when we're marketing our business is regardless of what you're selling, we have to let people know the face behind the brand and why was this created and why are you offering things and what kind of things, tickle your fancy. I get that. I think, and that probably is born a little bit out of the identity politics that are created on the world stage, right? Overall, we want to know where do you identify and what do you like and are you relatable and various things like that. So that's the first step to building a movement is really understanding what you're selling. You're selling a movement before you're selling a product.
And I'll say when you understand it's a movement, you understand that it's going to be multifaceted, right? So if I'm thinking about the overall way that I want people in my audience to feel or what the experience is, I'm looking at that from every angle. So for me, there is what are their daily practices? That's where my membership comes into play. What are they listening to every day? What are the meditations they're using? But then what are they doing for their general personal expansion? That's where my courses come into play. With the products, it is I want something physical for them to use every day. Like, how are we creating an entire lifestyle around this message? Like, that is the overall movement. And I think, for me, thinking of it that way, I've seen how I can expand it out. With books, it is, of course, if this is a movement, there's books, there's products, there's the podcasts, it's going into every area of their life and making it an overall lifestyle. So I would think about I think actually the expansion can really benefit the customer in many ways.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like the second piece really is looking at how do I compound the movement? What are the most efficient ways that I can compound it and create make it cohesive and then compound it and then keep building onto it. Okay, yeah. So what would you say the third thing is that we want to keep in mind when we're building a profitable movement in the new earth?
I think the third thing that's really important overarching is focusing on energetics and alignment over any logic or action in the physical, and going back to just, downloading the new templates like you were talking about before. I think we really have to toss out everything that has worked before. And I think you're seeing this too with clients. I feel like with everyone I know, everything that we used to do just isn't landing. It's like, yeah, it should be working. This is kind of the strategy we've been using for a long time and it's always worked, and it's just not landing anymore because people are wanting something totally different. And I think it's going to be really unique to every business. I think that people are searching for the new strategy, like the new template that everybody's going to align with. And I think that that's so individual to the company, and letting that be really individual. So I'll say, like, for me, the same way, like, we both work in the Akashic Records for our businesses, right? To me, that's like the way to go. That has to be the primary way for me, using a high, like the energy that I work with and I train other healers in. A high is like the main thing I use with my business, and I can get more done with my business focusing on its energetics and clearing out the energy and calibrating it than I can making another piece of content or doing anything in the physical. And I know you and I have both seen that work. So I think it's really tossing out all of the methods we used before and starting to focus on energetics and alignment. And that's going to lead us to doing things in very different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me think of what we kind of alluded to at the beginning. I don't pay much attention to this, frankly. I think that there's an opportunity for those of us choosing the ascended reality to really understand what accountability means. What does accountability mean as a very ascended leader? Ascended leaders are not going on Facebook bashing other coaches and bashing the coaching industry. That's the greatest way to repel it, because if you're bashing the industry that you're also a part of, then you're kind of bashing yourself, and that's incongruent. But my point is that a lot of these coaches that everyone wants to emulate, oh, you're successful, I'm going to join your community, so somehow I'm going to get your success by either not doing the work or copying, aka emulating to a T, almost stealing your IP, if not stealing your IP, become a version of you and then make you wrong when your methodology that was always designed to be a unique blueprint for you doesn't work for me. And then I'm going to publicly out them and create fake accounts to troll them and all this kind of stuff. This isn't stuff that happens all the time, but part of why that's coming to the surface is because we're all being invited to rise up, step into the field of possibilities, step into the field of imagination, stop, use your words when you're in coaching containers. If you're not having your words met, don't take your toys and go if things aren't going the way that you want, and rise the F up and be a leader. And anyway, step into the field of possibilities and step into the field of imagination, and I don't know, innovate your own methodology like Christina has done, right? Instead of making other people wrong because their unique blueprint that is based on their human design, based on their soul blueprint, based on all of the things, and that's why it came through them, is not likely going to work for you, right? So you can keep making others wrong because you're not moving forward and your movement isn't going where it wants to go, or you can lead up and take full responsibility as someone who claims to be elevating consciousness and claims to be operating in reality, and show the F up and do the work, right? And do the energetics like you're talking about. Welcome to my soapbox.
I love it. And it's like, we always say, I always say this on calls, I'm like, leaders go first. And so if you're waiting for somebody else to create the road for you, you're going to be waiting forever because you're going to be the one creating the road. And I feel like what's been helpful for me, and because I have, I started off as a nutritionist, and I have started to really think about business like I do the body. And, when I was working as a nutritionist, every client is so unique. And so, there could be no one food is going to be ideal for everybody, or one way of eating, and then our bodies change over time. And what worked for me, last year, I need to adjust it. I need to update it because the body is this, living, breathing thing. And it's going to need to change. And what works for me isn't going to work for Jennifer, and vice versa. And I've started to really think about like my business like a body very similarly. And that's with business strategies, realizing like whatever I figure out works for me is going to be so unique for me, the same way what I find works for me with my health routines is very unique for me. And I think that analogy has really been supportive. And where that has actually led me is we've talked about like how do you apply human design to your business and things like that. But with social media in particular, I think this is really important. I think there are a lot of people with really important high frequency messages who are going into social media and like using the platform the way it's been set up. And I actually feel it's really important that we infiltrate the platform and shift the vibration. So if I go into the platform and I'm like, oh, well, Instagram's pushing reels, so I have to post reels. But if you don't want to post reels, don't post reels. And what I have been doing is kind of just on purpose, everything that like I'm supposed to be doing where they're going to boost my profile, I'm doing the opposite because I'm not going to play the game. And my engagement has been a complete reflection of just what feels aligned for me. And it was funny because I was talking to somebody who helps with marketing, and she was pushing me to, go more the traditional route of like, well, they're pushing these types of posts, blah, blah, blah. And I told her, I said, look at my numbers. All of my biggest reach, my most engaged posts are the static posts that are in this way that you told me no one was going to read, but that's aligned for me. And I'm basically like breaking the algorithm via that. And I think we need to start doing that so that it goes back to like, how is the platform controlling how you're spreading the message, when it's like, no. If I'm a leader, I know what the best way is to bring this message through and what feels aligned. And I think we need to hold our ground, because I feel like a lot of people are playing the game and getting involved in the rules, like their rules of the game. And we need to be basically calibrating to higher frequencies within those platforms. And I think that's super important with social media right now.
Yeah, I love that you shared that. And I'm sure it's obvious to people. I mean, one of the ways that Christina has built her movement the way she has is because she doesn't subscribe to linear approaches. She's operating outside of the box, right? Out in the infinite field of possibilities, and challenging that stuff. And when you're saying that, it makes me think like you have to know your clients, right? Like, with love to all of you that create a fuck ton of reels and TikTok videos and stuff, do you think a 7 and 8 figure entrepreneur have any desire to sit and watch a bunch of people dancing on TikTok and stuff, right? That's not where we operate from. I couldn't even tell you that I don't watch reels. I don't watch TikTok things. I really don't do a lot of that stuff. And it's not because people aren't lovely, and it's not because they're not putting out great content. I'm sure they are. That's not time. Aside from my attention, time is actually my most precious commodity, and I guard it like you can't even imagine. That is such a low dividend activity for me. Leaders don't need to be marketed to like that. They just want to know, what do you do? How can you help me? And what results have you gotten other people? That's it. That's all you need to showcase. Yeah, you can make your profile a little pretty. Yeah, you can do things once in a while. You can create informational videos and upload them to YouTube. That's something I'm going to do. If I want to know how to do something, I'm going to Google it. I'm not going to be signing up for all that stuff. I'm not going to be sitting there just scrolling and gawking, whatever. I'm a creator, right? And all of you are as well. So yes, just like you said, Christina, I love that you said that actually. Just because the platforms are created to be used in a certain way doesn't mean that you have to subscribe to that. And for anyone that creates a successful movement, they tend to zig when everyone else is zagging.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like there's a lot of noise. I feel like the way that platforms have been set up has been to incentivize us to create more noise. So then people are confused because now there's so much information that's not that helpful. And people are getting confused and no one's able to really find out like what's going on or what they want. And so the thing is, I know, going back to know your client, like my type of client or customer is not scrolling. They're not even getting caught up in all of that mishmash of information. They're just searching for me directly, you know? And so I think about, if I know the person's searching for me directly and they just want, what's helpful for me today? They don't need the extra fluff. They're busy. They're like me, right? I don't want to sort through the extra fluff. I just tell me what I need to know, fast and easy and simple. And that makes my job a lot easier too, you know? And so I think it's just realizing where are we maybe accidentally or without realizing it contributing to more noise when we don't need to be doing so. And then also realizing that a lot of people are going to be looking for us directly nowadays because there's so much information. And so are you creating up your space, your container to feel the way you want to feel? You know, I think about the experience I want somebody to have when they step into my world and how it feels like, and I specifically curate my world to feel like you're in my world, you know? And so I have really great retention with clients because typically when somebody steps into my world, like it is an all-encompassing, they're listening to my podcast, they're doing my meditations every day, they're watching my YouTube videos every day. Like they're kind of, you know, all up in Christina the channel and they feel good. And so they're not even bothering to watch other things. And that does really well for my business, obviously, but it actually does serve the client really well because I'm just giving them what they need to know so they don't have to sort through all of the noise. So I would think about like, what is that experience I'm creating if I know someone's going to seek me out specifically and they want to get into my world, and how do I want my world to feel? Because that's going to be individual as well.
Yeah, I love that. And that is, I mean, I've known you for quite some time now, right? And that is true. So let us know in the chat, everyone. I can see some comments here of what you're taking away. Lydia's saying that she was blown away by an interview that you did on a podcast. And just the way you share and stuff, you do break it down very clearly. So what do you think of all the things we could be looking at first and really shifting from I'm running a business to I'm cultivating a personal brand around a movement? What would you say the first tactical step would be for people to take today or to consider?
I think it sounds basic, but getting really specific about what is my mission? Like, what is my mission? Because I have that very specific mapped out, and every decision I'm making for my business, I am looking through that filter. So if I'm thinking, oh yeah, I should post a little TikTok video or whatever, and I'm thinking, is this supporting me and fulfilling my mission today? Like every single day, I want to make sure that my activities are in support of I'm living the mission today, I'm fulfilling it today. And I realized, oh no, me spending an hour making this reel probably actually isn't fulfilling the mission, but maybe sending out this video that's going specifically to, you know, these members of my community, that is, because it's going to land with people, it's going to give them important information. So I think it sounds really basic, but if you're really clear on what the mission is and what that looks like tangibly, like that's your roadmap. and then simplifying, looking at everything on your plate. What can I simplify so that the only activities I'm doing are in alignment with fulfilling the mission? We don't need the clutter.
The only activities I'm focused on are the ones that are aligned with the mission. That seems like a good place to put a pin in it for now. I know you all want to keep hearing from Christina, and I will be having her on. I think we're doing the podcast next week, right? For predictions for 2023. Yeah. So just as a heads up, everyone, on the Great Awakening podcast, which is my podcast, we're going to be doing a roundtable from all different kinds of channels, astrologers and stuff around predictions that we have for 2023. So if you want to know about that, let us know in the chat. We'll make sure you get the advance notice, and we'll be uploading it in all the places. But you'll be able to hear Christina's non-business predictions and ways of being in 2023 next week, along with some other really amazing people. So in the meantime, can you please let us know, where do we find your podcast, and what is the best way to stay in touch with you?
Yes. So my podcast is Christina the Channel, and you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I'm everywhere at Christina the Channel on Instagram, YouTube. My website's christinathechannel.com. Instagram is where I'm most active every day. So that's probably the best place to connect with me right now. And thank you so much for having me. I would love to connect with everybody who's watching.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, Christina. And thanks to all of you for popping by. We like to keep these a little bit shorter because I know that we've got a lot of content that rolls in our feed, and I want it to be bite-sized and enjoyable and so on. So thanks for being here, Christina. Thank you. And we'll see you all very soon. Bye for now.